Good afternoon, my fellow Rotarians, Rotaractors, Youth Exchange students, and all our very special guests. I appreciate your kind invitation and the opportunity to be able to have with you this afternoon to share some of my thoughts. My world growing up was in St. Paul, Minnesota, and it was a very small world. I wasn't from the Twin Cities or from Minneapolis. I was from St. Paul. And only those not from St. Paul or Minneapolis would dare have the courage to confuse the two. My little world expanded when our family vacations took us to northern Minnesota in a rented cabin for 1 week each year. When I was in middle school, my aunt invited my cousin and myself to spend a long weekend in, of all places, here in the Wisconsin Dells. Please keep in mind this was more than a few years ago, so I'm talking about the old Wisconsin Dells, not the land of water parks. Having crossed state lines, I thought I was pretty cool as my world grew a little bit more. The trek into Wisconsin as a high school student had a whole different meaning when we came to Hudson to buy beer. As Wisconsin's drinking age was 18 and Minnesota's was 21. Never mind that I wasn't even 18. As an 18-year-old, I did take the bold step of leaving home and heading off to college in Dubuque, Iowa. Once again, my world grew. 4 years later, I liked my independence so much, I settled in my new hometown. My younger days' travel to Wisconsin must have stayed with me because 6 years later, I moved to Madison and have called it home for the last 35. This was my world until I joined Rotary, Minnesota, Iowa, and Wisconsin. My world grew exponentially because of Rotary, both geographically and with the lifetime friendships I have made. I remember listening to my fellow Rotarians when they reported on programs and projects that our club was supporting. I joined Rotary in the early years of our polio eradication efforts, and I remember hearing the names of countries and regions of the world I wasn't at all familiar with. And I remember realizing that I had joined something that was far greater than anything I could have imagined. Prior to our new grants model, our club sponsored 3 group study exchange team leaders and many more team members over the years. So we'd had the personal opportunity to home host members of many teams when they arrived in District 6250. We got to know those team leaders and members on a personal side, and we were fortunate enough to hear beautiful presentations by both our own members and our international guests. All the stories included their extraordinary experiences because of Rotary. Our Rotary world, keeps getting smaller with each and every experience. Many of our clubs represented here this weekend support Rotary Youth Exchange. These students and their parents put tremendous faith in Rotary's integrity when they hand over their children to us and into our care. We hosted a girl from Argentina many years ago, and when I asked Victoria why she picked Rotary's exchange program, she told me it was because Rotary's program was by far and away the best in the world. This speaks volumes of Rotary's reputation throughout our world. Our youth exchange students often tell us they wished every person could experience an exchange, for if we did, such a high level of tolerance and acceptance would exist that there would never be another war. With every youth exchange experience, our Rotary world gets smaller. About 6 years ago, thanks to a connection through Judy Slawney from District 6270, I met a young UW-Madison graduate who was intent on working for the Rotary Foundation. The summer before her senior year, she took a non-Rotary mission trip to a rural village in South America. She spent the summer trying to help the community understand the impact of changing the way they had always done things. When Emma and the rest of the team arrived, the families were using the local river for all of their water needs: drinking water, cooking water, bathing, washing dishes, and water for and defecation of their animals. We can all see where this situation is wrought with problems. The worst of the worst issues was that the cattle were in the water at the top of the flow. Therefore, all of their defecation streamed down to where the villagers used the water, further contaminating that water source. When it was suggested that the animals be moved downriver, following the home uses, the mission team received the response that we have heard in so many different ways: we've always done it this way. The mission team had to prove that the health of their children would improve if they made that one behavior change. After many community meetings, the leadership understood that the suggestions being made were for their long-term benefit, not the benefit of the mission team. Thankfully, one of the next programs implemented in this village was clean water and sanitation. Oh, and Emma did get her job at the Rotary Foundation. She was proud to serve us in the planned giving area. Because of Emma's exposure to Rotary through a non-related mission trip, her world was expanded and changed forever. I was so clueless about our Rotary Foundation, it wasn't until I was at my own President-elect's training seminar in 1993 that I found out from our incoming district governor, Don Mayo, that we could get free money when we wrote matching grants, partnering with an international club on the ground, and taking advantage of district-designated funds and World Fund matches. In our Rotary world of today, we are being asked to collaborate and partner with other Rotary clubs, implementing partners such as UNICEF, other non-government organizations or NGOs, and corporations who share our values and interests in bringing about lasting change in our world. And we are being asked to think big. While our minimum Rotary Foundation grant of today is $30,000, in order to provide sustainable behavioral and cultural changing programs, our vision has to be bigger than we ever imagined. So let's begin to develop partnerships that will include the maximum Rotary Foundation World Fund budget of $200,000. Please begin to join forces to develop humanitarian and educational global grants, where our combined club commitment of $150,000 is matched by district-designated funds of another $150,000 and maximizing the $200,000 World Fund limit for a total grant budget of $500,000. A program of this magnitude will be sustainable, will be life-changing for the beneficiaries and our clubs. The experience will bring Rotary and our world that much closer together. My service in Rotary has allowed me to travel to countries in our world I never dreamed of seeing. And with each experience, I have met the most incredible women and men of Rotary. Like each of us, They are dedicated to making life better for each beneficiary of our service. They are committed to doing good in the world, the motto of our Rotary Foundation. In February, I traveled along with Rotary's Chief Strategy Officer, Tom Thorfinson, who many of you may know, to Monrovia, the capital of Liberia, as guests of UNICEF. It was one of the most incredible Rotary experiences of my life, and it once again expanded my world. UNICEF is our primary implementing partner in our polio eradication efforts. Because of this successful partnership, UNICEF wanted to show us additional ways in which we could partner and build on the model that we have created through our polio experiences. Our first day in country included visits to 2 neighboring rural communities, about 20 miles and a 2+ hour sports bra drive outside the capital city. The communities have become very recently open defecation free. Each home now has a hand washing station, or a tippy tap, as they are commonly called, right outside their personal latrine. The clean water pump, their major water source, is centrally located between the 2 communities, a walk of less than a quarter mile from each group of homes. Because of the commitment of the community leaders in these 2 villages, all of the residents are experiencing a positive and lasting change in their lives. The implementation of implementation of all of the latrines, hand washing stations, and wells are a direct outcome of the collaboration between UNICEF and the community. Because the community was involved in the development and implementation of the program, they own their own destiny and are committed to maintaining their new infrastructure. Additionally, they are more connected to the rest of the world because of their new lifestyle. The significance of this experience connected us to our water and sanitation area of focus. On day 2, we visited 2 public health clinics, 1 private health clinic, and 1 public hospital. At all of the facilities, we saw the queue in which all women were waiting patiently with their young children. Most of the women walked up to 3 hours to get to their clinic, waited in line, received services, and walked home another 3 hours. The clinics we visited were focused on child immunizations. A record is kept of all of the children in the area, and if they don't come to the clinic for their scheduled appointments, the family is notified and a new appointment is scheduled. Because of the lessons learned from our polio efforts, the health workers and the families understand the value of all needed immunizations. The most powerful event we witnessed at the first clinic was that of a healthcare worker, herself a polio survivor, giving polio immunizations to these little children. Our area of focus dedicated to maternal and child health and disease prevention and treatment was emphasized on this day. In collaboration with UNICEF, Liberians are experiencing positive and lasting healthcare change, and in partnership with Rotary, joined 99.9% of our world in being polio-free. Our final day in country focused on basic education and literacy and economic and community development when we visited an urban slum, one in which UNICEF has developed a vocational school to reach out to the most vulnerable of the vulnerable. The girls we met, aged 5 to 25, had been raped, abused, prostituted, and had been drug addicts, to name only a few of the horrific experiences of their life. I hope you understand a little bit about how dire their lives were. The school is in its 4th year, and they have a waiting list, to learn vocations such as cosmetology, sewing, cooking, baking, and candle making. Boys are only now being admitted for enrollment as UNICEF recognizes that the change in how girls and women are being treated has to include boys. Again, we are seeing behavior change at the grassroots level. The girls who shared their stories with us were the most inspiring part of our entire journey. In just 3 short years, these girls and young women are confident, strong, and willing to talk about their lives in an effort to change the lives of others. And they are becoming very productive and active members of our global society. I share these stories with you because I think it helps all of us understand that with our partners, we are part of something big. We are part of an international organization that takes its internationality very seriously. Because of our commitment to Rotary, we have made a commitment to make our world a better place, one action at a time. We are making a difference. I've mentioned our polio eradication efforts throughout my comments. It is vitally important that we keep supporting and fighting to eradicate this dreaded disease from the face of the earth. When we started our fight, more than 350,000 children each year were impacted by this disease. As of yesterday, we have only 8 new cases of polio worldwide, still 8 too many. Through our ongoing commitment and financial support, we will eradicate polio. I ask each of you to keep our organization's #1 priority in front of your members and remind them, as long as one child is impacted, we are not done. Rotary is on the cusp of change. We are challenged to be attractive to the next generation of our communities into our Rotary clubs. We have that next generation with us this weekend. Please be sure to take the time to meet our youth exchange students and our Rotaractors and assure them that they are the future of Rotary. We will be there for them, and we will adapt to the changes necessary for our Rotary clubs to be relevant to them. In June of 2017, the Board of Directors and the Rotary Foundation trustees took separate decisions to adopt a vision statement in preparation for our new strategic plan. It is, together, we see a world where people unite and take action to create lasting change across the globe, in our communities, and in ourselves. Because of each of us here today, as well as all of our fellow Rotarians, our world is smaller, most certainly smaller than most of us could ever imagine growing up. We are serving to create positive, lasting change, both locally and globally. Each of us is and will continue to be an inspiration to those we serve. I am so proud to be a Rotarian from District 6250 and a part of this TriCon 2008. Thank you again for the opportunity to allow me to share my thoughts.